And that brings us to this last part, this webinar, which is showing how we can integrate NannyML in production. Like Wojtek said, I'm more of a hacker type of data scientist and not so much engineering like. I'm always afraid from the command line. But that is exactly what I'm going to show today. So we have prepared, maybe I'll put this, because we have on NannyML GitHub, it's our NannyML GitHub, where we just have our open source package. We also, in our organization, have the examples repository, where all of these integrations that we do, we store them there. And you can have a look at them. And then there's a configuration file that you can tweak and make it work for your specific use case. And today we're going to look at the regression example and all of the documentation to run this here and how to get your Docker containers locally explained here. And I'm just quickly going to walk you through on how to do that. So of course, you'll have to clone that repository locally. And I'm already in that repository. And the first thing that we're going to have a look at is what we're exactly going to Docker compose. So Docker compose is a way to orchestrate containers. So I can have a quick look at that file, the YAML file, what's inside. This is already prepared by us. You don't have to really change anything in here. It's basically saying that there is 3 containers that are going to work together, one of which is the NannyML container. And that is just a command line interface that uses the NannyML open source library, and that is containerized. And then we have a Grafana container and a metric store container. After we run NannyML, whether it's scheduled or ad hoc, it's gonna store all of the outputs in a Postgres database, but that can be basically any type of database that you want. And then that can be fed into Grafana, and there is some template dashboards out of the box that we've provided. There is, of course, one thing, what I said before, if you want to set up a monitoring system, there's a little bit of configuration to do. And we can do that in NannyML itself. There's a configuration file and NannyML or a NannyML engineering joke. We can have a look at that as well. And this is all the configuration that we have to specify in here. It's not that much, but I'll quickly walk you through it. So we basically have to specify where our reference data is stored, where our analysis data is stored, and that can be a local file system, cloud storage, or a database, and also where if there is ground truth, where it's going to be populated as well. Then our database, which is the other Docker container, and right now this is already pre-configured. We have to specify what type of use case we're working on. Here we're doing regression. We also have to say on which granularity we want to chunk. We decided to do here daily. We have to do some column mapping and being verbose about which are the features that are specifically going inside of this model. And then also the time dimension and some of the other stuff that we specified inside of our library interface when we were still in Jupyter Notebook. And then that should be it. And we can just do Docker compose up, and that should be running. So it's creating the containers. Back a little bit. This is just some logging for setting up Grafana. And then slowly we should see NannyML boot up. And we see that here NannyML is going to execute, and it's basically running all of the things that we had run before inside of the notebook. And then in this case, we're doing some univariate drift detection, also the data reconstruction with multi-multivariate. We're running the performance calculator. We're doing direct loss estimation, and we see that the NannyML container has successfully exited. And that means that we should be able to go to our dashboards and refresh this. This was a previous run. I'll have to log in, which is NannyML. And then we can see here that we have our dashboards. One is with regards to performance, and the other one is with regards to drift. And we basically get the same type of view, but in our usual Asana setup. There's a lot of drift here because we chunked on a day. And these are also just out of the box dashboards that don't truly leverage the power of the full library. And then we also have some performance dashboards here where we can see some of the alerts for the real life performance, and in this case, that's mean absolute error. And that's how you deploy NannyML. I'm gonna quickly show something else as well, because this is just a one-off run, but we can also do NannyML in a scheduled way. Local compose that. Okay, and then I'm gonna go to the incremental example. Right. And I'm quickly going to show for this example, because here NannyML is scheduled to run every few hours or every few minutes. I'll have to look how we set it up in the configuration file. But again, we can go into that YAML file, and it's more or less the same. The only thing here is that how this is set up and how this storage is set up is that basically there was some folder structure, and every day that data gets dumped and then renamed for every API call. Not exactly sure, but there's a lot of optionality and variability that can be introduced here. But the most important thing is that we are here scheduling indeed NannyML to run every minute, and that means that if we then set this up, we can actually see how NannyML would be used in a real life use case where there is a prediction service and where there is a constant stream of data going to it. So again, NannyML setting up. It's going to be the same thing, but except having a complete view on our production environment, we'll only see one data point at a time. So we see that here it's writing the results and then sleeping until the next run. So that means that we can go back to our Asana dashboard. This is a new Docker compose, a new container setup. So we'll have to log in again because it's not the same anymore. And then we can go to our dashboards, and we see that we've one data point populated. Right, set a refresh on them in a few seconds. You should see the next data point appear. And then we can basically see how NannyML would work on a use case that is being and making predictions live. And there we go. And this is gonna keep going forever until I shut this down.